Okay, so the reason I found this video, well, for the reason we found this channel was because the free revisits and Det was deciding to find this channel, and the reason I found this video is because every now and then I just should check to see what could he possibly create. It's a bunch of Batman and Ruby videos, but then it's like I check in the playlist, like, oh, he has it's perfect and it's not, and that's fine. It's not perfect and that's fine. On Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, yeah, it's probably going to be interesting because Brotherhood's seen as one of the better animes.
One of the best, even.
Yes, and I don't know about your thoughts, Gavin, on Brotherhood,
It's
because you said like
my
they're
it's my second favorite anime of all time.
yeah, and it's like, and the thing is, with his Ruby videos, he's not good at he's very bad at explaining. Like he's not good using long form content at all. Like the best way to explain it is a lot of times it seems like he'll just lie on the videos. Like as you've seen with the Ironwood video,
Yeah.
he is just misrepresenting out of the ass to do that to make Robin look like the good person. So it's like, what could he possibly say about Fullmetal Alchemist? Now,
Yep.
Det has seen the entire video.
Oh, damn!
Gavin, you've
How'd you
seen
get through? How'd you get through it?
I managed somehow, although I think he took about 5 years of my life for it.
uh, Gavin, you've seen 5 minutes and then you said you tapped.
Yep.
Okay, and I've seen probably I saw it up until the moment he was talking about the homunculus because he just starts getting really because I didn't want to hear what he had to say on greed because if he says something bad about greed like one note, it's like I'm going to lose it because he's gonna be lying.
Yeah.
A bit of a spoiler, he does call lust one note and he does call envy one note.
um, Envy definitely not, but Lust.
You
That's
can
actually that's
you
actually
can
kind
make
I would hear the argument for Lust in Brotherhood, but I'm trying to exactly get my memories straight because the most recent Fullmetal Alchemist I've seen is the 2003 anime where they give Lust a different backstory. So
They gave all the homunculus a different backstory there.
yeah,
yeah
but like
like slot he says
specifically about
sloth
Lust, like
lust and
specifically
he
about
says
Lust is
yeah
she's I think she's one note in Brotherhood, but she's not in the 2003 anime? Question mark.
like, maybe but like he says sloth lust and envy. It's like sloth you can make an argument
Sloth
for lust.
absolutely.
Yeah, lust maybe, but you can't call envy one note.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Wait, would sloth be? What? No, not sloth.
Well, like I don't have much to say on sloth. Is the thing like
I
I
Sloth is absolutely one note because I remember watching when I was watching Brotherhood for the first time and Sloth showed up. I was like, oh, that's Sloth. That's kind of nothing. All the rest of these great
yeah
homunculus, and we get just some big dude. He's just big
Well, they
muscle
gotta
man.
make him. Well, they gotta make him work out, or else he really will probably just be a big fat sloth.
that's the fair.
But Lust, Lust I think is one note, but that might just be my memories betraying me. And Envy absolutely not. So yeah.
Yeah, and also like, there's other parts of the show where I'm like, these are like one of the best characters I've seen. Like I've already said about Creed, like he's probably my favorite character in the show.
Yeah, he's
Like
pretty up
it's
there.
and it's like it's all the like I don't like yeah I'm not really the best at explaining either, but at least I'm not gonna be lying about this show.
Absolutely not. And hey, if a valid criticism is brought up, all the better.
Oh yeah.
uh,
If those exist in this video.
Oh, we'll
that
see if
knows
those
something we
exist.
don't. And I guess we'll see. No, no better time to start.
And welcome to the beginning of a new series called It's Not Perfect and That's Okay, brought to you by my wonderful patrons.
The first thing I want to say, and I said it back when you first synced the video, is if there should not be a series called It's Not Perfect and That's Okay, because that applies to literally everything ever. Nothing is perfect, and whether or not is okay, that's okay is dependent on how you look at the phrase. Like, yeah, it's fine and nothing's perfect because nothing will ever be perfect, but it's not okay if something has flaws.
This
Yeah,
just sounds like a major cop out answer because like the Halo TV series, it is definitely not perfect and it's definitely not okay, but people will still say it's okay. They don't really give an answer as to why it's okay. If they like it, that's fine, but you can't go into depth on why you like it. I've heard
that's
people
it.
even say themselves they had to force themselves to like it.
And yeah, that's the thing. Like I've been catching up in EFAP. The weirdest thing, criticism or the thing I've seen is you need to watch it 2 times to understand it, or like I need to watch it again to like it. It's like
The most I've
okay,
seen for arguments is don't watch it. If you don't like it, don't watch it.
but it's like it's okay to not like it, and it's okay to not like it and watch it. But it's like you can't just be like it's not good, but that's still fine.
Yeah, if you want to make like a final conclusion about a thing, it's probably better that you watch it more than once because there are going to be things that you miss. But doubtful that a rewatch is going to completely change your perspective on the thing because chances are, if there's a plot hole that you saw and it is still a plot hole the second time you saw it, that doesn't change.
Yeah, like I'm just learning more now about the Last Jedi, and
Anyway.
I've watched that
No,
like
you mean like in Last Jedi where they have their lasers doing an arc for some reason?
no,
Mm.
I'm more talking about the fact that a decloaking sounds actually stupid.
I'm surprised it took
Decloaking
you so long to realize that.
Well, I
Like,
watched it once, and I was like, I didn't really like it because it is like
but
I just
decloaking
didn't.
is something that should always be active. You never know when something's cloaked. You should always have something like that active.
And if you do know when something's cloaked, then what the fuck is the point of the scan? To just be on all the time.
It's like, oh hey, I had this motion tracker and the enemy is just traveling around us. I don't know where it is. I'm not going to use this motion tracker.
Mm.
The purpose behind this series is in order to analyse media that I feel has become so popular that the critical discussion of it has just sort of faded into obscurity or never really been directed where I feel it should be, at least not enough for my tastes. This of course doesn't mean that the shows themselves aren't good. Even if I don't personally like them very much, I'd still recommend checking them out rather than just listening to me on this front. It's not cool to condemn
a
them
weird
ignorance
transition.
after all. Now our first
I saw a
episode
lot
is...
of artifacting on that transition. Did anyone else?
Yes, it looked really gross. I was really confused about what was happening for a second.
Maybe he's trying a new, I don't know, avatar sort of situation instead of always just cutting to one thing to another. Like how some people do with like their 2D avatars.
Who knows? And also, to be fair, the aside from the title of this series, I think the premise is a fine idea because there are a lot of things that are hyper popular and really just don't get criticized like ever. The entire reason I got into Persona 5 and ended up hating it way more than I really should have was because the entire time leading up to me playing Persona 5, I had heard literally nothing but praise. And so when I actually played the game, my expectations were way too high. So then I ended up hating it way more than I should have. So the idea of pointing out the flaws in something that people usually don't do that for, that is a good idea. Now, will those flaws be valid? Considering Zellrider, probably not.
Is a doozy. We'll be discussing Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, henceforth referred to as Brotherhood or BH for short. This series is an adaptation of the Fullmetal Alchemist manga and considered something of a successor and by some a superior model to the Fullmetal Alchemist anime series of 2003. A quick aside before you begin, but adapting the manga plotline more faithfully isn't actually an inherently positive or negative quality, it's simply an observation of fact, and I do actually have several issues with the manga that will also be brought up by virtue of this discussion. Alright, let's begin.
I want to more so contest about that because most anime they try to go off on their own from the source material, and It's
I
like
mean, well, no, Zell's
I want
right.
to say it's like a 80-20 on good to bad, or in this case, bad to good, because a lot of them don't know where they're gonna be going, so they make up their own rules, and then it'll be later contradicting when the source material actually comes out.
Yeah, most anime that try to go off on their own and not adapt the manga are bad. But Zell is right. Not adapting the manga isn't inherently bad. I think the 2003 Fullmetal Alchemist anime is fine.
It ends weirdly, and you need a movie to finish it technically.
Yeah, but honestly, I didn't dislike it as much as I thought I was going to. It was a fine show. Brotherhood's just better. So,
I
it's
just remember I just remember getting really bored early on from the 2003 one.
yeah, it's definitely got a slower pacing. Well, considering what it actually adapts. But but
I'm
but
trying to
but
recall where it heavily diverges.
um, I'd say like right before
It has to be
the
before Scar, considering all the changes he got in '03.
yeah so okay, a lot of the things in '03 they're like they feel like filler but end up being canon to the anime. And so like the first time where it's like, okay, this absolutely is not filler, and if it were adapting the manga, this absolutely isn't filler and this absolutely is like important to the 2003's canon. I'd say is when Dante first gets introduced. Oh, as old lady Dante. But yeah, I mean, yeah, Zell's technically right here. Not adapting the manga isn't inherently bad. However, 9 times out of 10, if not 99 times out of 100, the anime or the not adapting ends up being worse.
I'm going to start out with relatively small and simple things and move my way up to the more complicated, nuanced stuff as we go along. Starting with the pettiest and smallest of my gripes, I'm sort of ambivalent about the animation. I think it's overall very modern, and it's mostly inoffensive and perfectly fine to me, if a bit doughy at times, but I really can't get into Scar and Hohenheim's facial structures.
What does
They're
doughy
really
mean?
Uh,
Too rounded for him?
I think so. Well, that's the funny thing, right? Is that he showed a picture of Ed when he said doughy, and I was like, okay, so I guess it just looks too rounded for him, like you said. But then the next thing he
but I
says is,
really can't get into Scar and Hohenheim's facial structures. They're really rectangular and just don't look like they match with the rest of the setting.
so the rectangular characters are bad because they don't match, and the rounded characters are bad because you don't like them.
I'm trying to also figure this out because technically Scar and Hohenheim are from Hohenheim, especially, is from a different country entirely. Technically,
That
so is Scar from a different sect of land.
that too, and also aren't like the older characters usually given more rectangular faces in Fullmetal Alchemist?
Usually are given more rectangular end lines to indicate their age.
Yeah, like what's it? Armstrong has a pretty rectangular-ish jawline.
And it's been
Uh,
passed down his family for generations.
Teacher's husband. I don't remember his name. I actually don't remember if it's ever said.
Oh man, I think it was like Sid or something.
Maybe. You
All
could
I
be
know
lying to
is
me, and I
that they
never
had a
know.
glorious flex off.
Yeah.
And it just distracts me every time I look at them. On a more substantive front, the first episode of Brotherhood is honestly kind of a mess.
The first episode is filler. Point blank period. Yeah, it's bad, but and yes, it's a part of Brotherhood, so you could say that, oh, if I'm judging Brotherhood as a whole, I should include the first episode. But like, does it really count? I submit no.
kind of find it amusing as a novelty, but it simply put front loads everything with way too many characters, far too much exposition, reveals a ton of plot points and world building details before they were meant to be, ruining the dramatic revelations, and is just generally kind of a mess, but I think that's fairly universally agreed upon. What's less agreed
Wait, how
upon
many
is the
characters are
ensuing
introduced in the first episode? So we got Ed and Al. We got Roy. Then we
Hawkeye.
got Hawkeye. We got the Fuhrer.
Mm-hmm.
Who else?
I think Armstrong's in there too.
Actually, yeah, I think so too. That's 6.
The Havoc and the glasses one.
Fury.
Yeah.
So we got 8, and I want to say of those 8, 3 of them aren't really that like prominent, and those being like Roy, Roy's Snell.
Yeah, Havoc and Fury.
They were just kind of there.
Armstrong was just kind of there like the end of the episode.
And like that's if you want to count them down, like that's still not a lot. They're like 5 people or 5 to 6 people.
Like I'm sure there are people we're forgetting, but like the first episode doesn't really matter. With
The
is it
people
is
we
it
need to know, we remembered it.
is it even really canon?
Technically, kind of considering Roy later is going over his files, and they go further into the Shang-Chi's alchemy.
Like, yeah, I assume it's canon, but like the ice guy never gets mentioned again. None of the events in that
Wait.
episode do.
Well, technically, he does. Again, they're going over his file when he was researching Shang-Chi's alchemy.
Huh. Well, fuck me then.
9 or so episodes, which, broadly speaking, I'm not a huge fan of. Much like the first episode, though not to the same degree, they tend to speed through a lot of major plot details and character arcs to the point where they lose a lot of their emotional weight and impact. Just for some examples, we learn a lot about the Ishval extermination, Father, Wrath, all very early on and somewhat out of sequence so that they lose a lot of their weight.
So, if I'm remembering the first 9 or so episodes of Brotherhood correctly, we get introduced to the Ishval stuff, but it's not like we learn everything about it in the first 9 episodes. Like
Not even kind of.
a lot of later Brotherhood is about us delving deeper into what happened in Ishval. So to say, oh, we learned about the Ishval stuff in the first 9 episodes is not
Bit of a lie.
particularly true.
Okay.
Though considering or comparing it to the 2003 anime, Brotherhood does go through a lot of these things way faster. The Scar fight is what, episode 5 in Brotherhood, and it's like episode 16 in 03. But I don't know if that's I don't know if that's Brotherhood going fast for the manga or if that's 03 going slow for the manga, because I haven't read the manga. And in terms of how it was paced within the show itself, I thought it was fine.
All in all, the first 10 episodes seem very reliant on the audience either having read the manga and already being invested in these characters, or watched the 03 anime and already being invested in these characters and the world and not needing anything
Considering
explained
this is
to
a
them.
remake.
Well, no, I don't even think that's true, because I had seen neither when I started Brotherhood, and I absorbed it just fine.
So that's also
I
true.
only saw the regular manga, not the manga. The 03 the 03.
I watched 03 sparingly as a young kid. I didn't watch it fully until way later when I actually could use the internet.
I didn't watch 03 until like a year ago. Which was years after I had seen Brotherhood, so.
Which is fine for people who have watched those shows or read that manga, but it's less applicable to anyone who's a new audience member. For instance, we only spend 1 episode with Nina Tucker before she's turned into a chimera and then killed off, and then we only spend 1 episode after that really grappling with it, and much of that is spent fighting Scar. After that, she's just sort of forgotten for the rest of the series up until right near the end.
Okay, this is the one I had a problem with. She's just forgotten. It affects them so much.
Yeah, Nia being forgotten simply isn't true.
And also, this dude can't be talking because he watches Ruby.
Yeah.
You forgotten? Oh right. What about the 2 teammates of Pyrrha that just don't say their name? Don't say her name at all.
Yeah. Nina absolutely isn't forgotten. I guess you could say that they could have spent more time on it, an episode for it, and then some of the time afterwards thinking about it may not be enough. But again, I was a completely new viewer to Brotherhood, and I absorbed it just fine, and I never forgot about it. So maybe an episode was a fine length. You could make the argument that the more time could have been spent, but one episode
We
was
have to go
fine.
into detail for like why and how it would be better for like a longer than one
Yeah,
episode.
you would have to break down the events of the episode and the events of the manga and say this is why it should be about this long in the anime instead of just saying it was too short in the anime.
Where she becomes something of a thesis statement for Edward Elric's character development, but given how little time we spent with her, it feels very much just like relying on the, oh, very cute kid, bad thing happened to them sort of thing over getting us invested in the relationship and the character. A similar problem is applied to Maze
Well,
Hughes,
that
who
seems to be a you problem because like I don't know about you two, but I felt very invested with and it's like
Yeah, so did I.
I'd say many people were invested on that to the point now it's become a meme.
Yeah.
in the relationship and the character. A similar problem is applied to Maze Hughes, who we don't really spend that many episodes with before he's killed off, and we spend even less time seeing his relationships with other characters, so his impact on them and why he matters to them is far less well developed than it was in, say, the manga or the 03 series.
So you guys are gonna have to help me out on this one because in 03 you spent a lot more time with Hughes. And from my memory of Brotherhood, we do spend enough time, but maybe I'm remembering wrong.
we spent a good amount of time knowing his character, knowing how he interacts with people, like how he like, we know how exactly what like he's a caring person. We know he is really friendly with a bunch of people.
Yeah, that's what I
It's like,
assume.
also and also this is just really bad. This is just really bad.
I don't. It's funny how he's just saying like we don't get enough time when like you could show like it's the episodes of when he's introduced to say like, hey, this goes by really quick
Yeah,
instead of doing screenshots.
it's weird that the point of this series is supposed to be, oh, people don't criticize this thing enough. But if anyone's watching this and going, maybe I didn't criticize Brotherhood enough, all they're hearing is not enough time spent on this. Not gonna explain why there wasn't enough time spent on it. There just wasn't enough time.
How can it compare it to the manga and how many pages and such were devoted
Wh-
to it? Just gonna say it.
which is actively contradictory to my memories because I remember Nia just fine. I remember Hughes just fine. So
And
you'd have to
also
convince me
and
that not
also
enough time was spent.
and also this is the Demon Slayer thing of you don't need like so much time to get to know them. You can get like a few traits and just completely like a character based off of it. And that's the same thing with Hughes. Like like, he gets a good amount of time on screen, and you get a good amount of traits from that.
For the
Yeah.
most part, I'm just remembering his scenes of him visiting Ed in the hospital, a few talks with Roy, then also him hiring what was her name, Jessica, the book library lady,
Yep.
and then we have him dragging Rinri to his house. They have a little party. That
Mm-hmm.
scene entirely, and then waving goodbye to her. I think what else? 'Cause I feel like there was definitely more before he went into the office and figured out pretty much Father's plan.
But from what I remember, it was enough because I loved Hughes just fine.
He was a great guy.
And again, well, actually, no, I'll save that for later.
It becomes far less, oh my gosh, Hughes, this integral character who has been with us for so long and we never thought anything bad would happen to, and far more, oh, the guy who's really sweet about his family is dead. That's very sad. Still technically a
He was
tragedy.
very integral, mainly because when we
the,
learned what he found out,
the entire reason he
would've
died.
solved so-
The entire reason he died was made him so integral. You might say.
it took our characters over 30 plus episodes to figure out Father's plan, and he figured it out within the first 10.
Just
Technically,
one with less.
if you want to say when he's introduced, within like the first 5 episodes?
Um,
I'm trying to remember when exactly he's introduced.
I'd say like episode 4 because that's right when they get that's after they're done with the Sun Town.
I think so. Yeah.
less impact and depth, basically. But after that, the series did do a fairly good job of writing itself and then developing
Can you
things
rewind me
going
what he
forward.
said a second? Something impact of death.
But after that, the series did do a fairly just one with less impact and depth is dead. That's very sad. Still technically a tragedy, just one with less impact and depth, basically. But after that,
What
the
do you mean by
series
that?
There
Oh,
was
so like
there
like
wasn't
when a
enough
character
time.
dies twice.
There wasn't enough time spent on
Oh.
it, so no impact in depth or less impact in depth.
Yeah, a lot of things can lessen the impact of death, like a character dying twice. Just Ruby. I'm gonna keep bringing that up because it is shocking how you're gonna be criticizing Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood and then bringing up piss poor points, but then you're gonna be like, no, Ruby, this is fine.
Oh, but Triton, Ruby is not perfect, and that's okay.
Oh, but you're not gonna bring up the actual bad points.
Of course not, or else he loses the argument, and he can't have that.
did
is
do a fairly good
terrible.
job of writing itself and then developing things going forward and organizing everything and all the characters and putting them into place for the promised day and the final blowout conclusion. So, you know,
pause for a second.
credit.
He said he's lacking depth. Just kind of going back to Hughes a bit when he said he was lacking depth. What exactly was he missing, and what could he have used more?
More time.
That's just it in general, just more screen time for him.
Yep.
So he could have just been in the background there waving hi to us for about 2 minutes, and that would have been nice.
Who knows? Zell didn't explain.
Hey, Dad, I have a question. So is he gonna be bringing up problems with Fullmetal Alchemist and not explaining how it could have been done better?
No, he
Possibly.
does. When it comes to his own how his mind works or his own problems, he will explain how his own problems have solutions.
All right then.
Where it's due. Speaking of the writing though, and this is something I've seen criticized in at least one other Fullmetal Alchemist video, the humor can be a really big problem to me. The manga enjoyed having
That's your
humor
issue to you. That's humor
So you
subjective.
you
I don't see
can't be
why this is
just.
a point. Don't see why this is a point against the show. This is specifically to you.
So
This,
after I watched 03, I definitely noticed. Okay, 03 spends a lot more time on. There's a lot less jokes per minute or whatever for 03, but to say that Brotherhood goes crazy on the jokes is not really indicative of like the entire series or of just the show and not the entire franchise, because 03 has a lot of jokes in it, and I haven't read the manga, but I would assume the anime is adapting jokes from there.
to lighten the mood or contrast things to an extent, but because of its format, it was much easier for those jokes not to overstay their welcome. And even then, I still found them obstructive at various points. But Brotherhood just takes it to another level, with every joke seeming.
You could just show a clip of a funny being too. Why can't he just show a clip? If he says they overstay their welcome, he could just show a clip. And if he wants to be safe from the copyright and stuff, add a bunch of filters. Maybe distort the sound a bit. Flip it if he wants to.
nah, but that's too hard. You can't be showing proof for your evidence.
'Cause with the manga, it's literally at the speed you read.
I'm pretty sure he shows a GIF, and it's like that did not last. That didn't last too long.
It's like that with that scar point, with that or scar image he showed. That image itself only lasted like what? I want to say at the most 5 seconds. Is that too much for him?
And depends on how much you want to see like the joke is like a huge joke thing, or is it just a site that's supposed to make you like smile or whatever, or is it like a laugh out loud type of joke?
This would be better if he just showed either clips or like showed the manga panels of like, hey, this one went on too long, and this one comparing it to the manga panels.
Because just something that makes you like smile for a bit, it's like that's not exactly going to be a tone ruiner if the overall tone is serious or whatever. But obviously, like you wouldn't want to a laugh out loud joke during a serious moment. But if it's not like that crazy of a joke, then it's not that much of a ruiner. And it's weird how he brings up, oh, in the manga, it's more okay because the format is better for this. But it's like, what about the format? The fact that
I think, yeah.
the fact you
Here's
can
the
see
thing.
panels
For
ahead of
that
time.
specific one, I think I understand what he's trying to say because the format is like it's a pages, so it's like it's one like panel and it's done. But like,
But again, that's up to the speed he's reading at, because someone could just like, oh hey, that's a cute little doggy. Spend I don't know a couple more seconds on it because they want to admire that little doggy.
Yeah, that's entirely dependent on how fast you read the thing. Because for some manga, I really sit on panels for a lot. Spy X Family, I spent way more time on a Spy X Family panel than I did like a Bleach panel. And that's because I read them at different speeds. So it's weird to be like, oh, the manga format is
yeah, but that was
better.
because you're trying to get through to Bleach.
True, but that's just the point about it's about how fast you read.
My reading comes to a halt when I had to question something. I'm just like, did I just read that right? Go back a few pages. Da, 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 da.
I just tried to spit a little bit of speed reading through Demon Slayer, and it's like, yeah, every time I got to Zenitsu, it's like, oh, it is a lot of. I don't know if it's just I have the ingrained yelling, but I assume for a manga reader, for like somebody who hadn't read the anime, and I don't know how many people have, it'd just be like it would just be a quick thing as opposed to the anime where it is very long.
Yeah, that the Zenitsu stuff I feel is definitely excuse me, something caught in my throat. The Zenitsu stuff definitely is more dragged out in the anime, considering with the manga is just a few panels at the very least, whereas the anime will drag that thing out for a minute.
Like maybe half a minute. It's like it is a good long time, and it's annoying, and it's a lot.
That is
But
a lot
like
of
Fullmetal
screaming and
Alchemist doesn't
crying.
do that.
And them obstructive at various points, but Brotherhood just takes it to another level, with every joke seeming like it stays on way too long and being
Okay,
much
what
too.
what does this have to do with what you're saying? Like, you're showing sloth on screen. Was there what was
Use
Was it
visuals that help your
was his
points,
speech pattern the
people.
joke to him? Was the speech pattern his entire joke? Like, oh, I'm so tired. Is that
because
what his problem was?
because if that's your problem, then that's not that's the whole his it's like you're gonna call the homunculus one note, but then you're gonna also be like, oh, he was is the visual he was just a joke.
I mean, that would be one note, but also that's
But yeah,
that's also like
I didn't mean
is
anything like that. But like,
that goes back to what I was saying about like, oh, is it like just a thing that makes you smile or is it a laugh out loud joke? Is Sloth speaking slowly supposed to be a haha funny joke, or is that just supposed to be a trait of sloths?
One thing I found funny was when he said, "I am the fastest homunculus."
Yeah, that was funny.
Formative that it just ruins the tension in every scene. Sometimes it's stuff like the characters basically becoming chibi versions of themselves as they try to escape an enemy force. Other times,
go back to that. Go back to that. We're gonna go through each
They're
of these.
moving away from the screen. You could chibify them if you want.
I mean, we don't even have to go through all of these because I can already tell you this again. This is what I was talking about. Is this supposed to be a joke you laugh at, or is it supposed to be a thing the show does? The character, like Det said, the characters are getting smaller. Why not chibify them if you're gonna be there? If that's just a thing you do, then might as well do it. It's the style of the show.
Just a quick second ago, they conveniently knocked that guy out from a door. He's just suddenly popped up. So why not have them be chibi and run away? Look at that guy in the corner. He ain't having a good day.
characters basically becoming chibi versions of themselves as they try to escape an enemy force. Other times it's interrupting a very weighty moment with a joke that just goes on too long, like Alphonse ranting about losing his arm after Edward and he face down Scar for the first time.
So this is where I tapped because
That's a joke.
Okay, yeah. See, here's the thing. This is where I tapped because I heard this and I was like, that doesn't sound
Fonz
right.
ranting about losing his arm after Edward and he face down Scar for the first time.
Al ranting about losing his arm. I was like, okay, that doesn't sound right. And so I just went back to Brotherhood and I watched that scene over again. It is not Al ranting about losing his arm as a haha funny joke. It is Al chewing out Ed for almost getting himself killed, and then his arm happens to fall off at that time. And because Al, being the child that he is, he's just going off about things that are annoying him in the moment, says, and now my arm's falling off because Ed wanted to be an idiot. Is that a joke? I would submit no.
I guess to him, he finds it as a joke, and it was unfunny. Even though I find his take on jokes is very, very weird.
So, God, you're saying Zell is misrepresenting stuff?
Yes.
Funnily misunderstand the scene.
Fundamentally misunderstood
great.
the scene.
Great.
Or Lust just becoming a weird, vaguely threatening boob joke with jiggle physics during the confrontation with Roy and Havoc stopping the entire fight to become comically animated and talk about how
They
much
haven't
he
even
loves
started
boobs.
the fight.
That's
Yeah.
not what happened, Zell.
Another thing that you guys probably remember better than I do, but I don't remember the boob jokes being that much of the fight, if even a part
No,
of
they
the
weren't.
fight.
And
They were
actually,
just there, and that was it.
You know
Technically,
what's funny?
you technically got one more boob joke, and it's when Lust makes it like, you really should ask a girl out something before you stick your hand in her chest.
And that was when Roy and that was when Roy was trying to grab the Philosopher's Stone out of
Hey,
out of
he
his
stole
chest to
her-
try to power her down.
Not
And
power down, but to take her
You know
stone and try to heal Havoc, who just had his spine broken.
and again, that's not even a haha funny joke. That is Lust making a quip because she knows that she is that she has the power in the situation.
Yeah, okay, and here's the best part. When she was trying to when she this is the Brotherhood. When she was trying to like get to Havoc, the time she's shown with Havoc in the scene, she does not have she is like, wearing a very
He's
what is
wearing
the
a thick
word?
sweater, a
Yes.
turtleneck sweater.
Yeah. So she's not a boob joke thing character.
Well, that depends on how you view the sweater, because it was a vertical line sweater, and vertical lines accentuate curves. This is something you learn.
This is meant to be a major confrontation with a villain. A guy loses a section of his spine. This should be serious. I'm not feeling
Hey,
relieved because
Does it
Talk
have to be
about the
serious?
scene in order how they happen instead of misordering them and making it sound like this is a problem.
Yeah, it very much feels like to me like this video is for people who haven't seen Brotherhood in a while, because that applies to me. I had not seen Brotherhood in some time, and I've seen
Yeah, but
2003 more recently, and so obviously I'm not going to remember these things as well. And so if I hear oh, the Lust fight was mostly boob jokes and this that and the third, I'm gonna go, I mean, I guess if it was, then thing, if I don't go back to check. But for anyone who's
Yeah, but,
actually remembers the series, this is not going to be any valid kind of criticism.
yeah, and also if people think, wait a second, that doesn't add up, and check back, well, yeah, you're kind of gonna be outed as you're lying.
What's more funny is like technically the whole Lust versus Roy and Havoc scene. I'm fairly certain that's on YouTube. So a quick Google, or YouTube in this case, would show that he is flat out lying on that scene and how he laid it out.
Yeah, the only reason I went back to check the owl scene is because I actually remembered that one. But
That was a great scene.
But if I didn't go back to check it, I guess I just never would have known, because Zell doesn't provide any any evidence.
as these jokes happened, I feel like the tone is just ricocheting around, and so I have a hard time staying invested in the fight. On a similar front, and leading us into our next point, I really don't like how they're constantly making jokes about Izumi's condition. The manga and 03 anime did this to extents, but they usually treated it with a bit more gravitas, especially 03, though again, it still happened, and I still
How
don't
does
really
that-
think maybe...
What does he mean by gravitas?
Uh,
And I show a panel of them taking it as serious as with the gravitas he's talking about.
and so what's funny to me about Izumi's condition is that it is very much played for jokes. Early on, when we know Izumi, So all we know about her is that she's no, not all we know about her, but the some of the biggest things we know about her is she's strict, and every now and then she spurts blood from her mouth, and that's just treated as a joke because it's just a thing Izumi does. But then later on, when we find out why that's the case, it does not get treated as a joke as much. That's something I remember from Brotherhood. And it happens in O3 as well. As soon as we find out exactly why Izumi spurts blood from her mouth, it does not get treated as a joke nearly as often, if at all, actually.
I'm trying to remember when exactly that she brought up that she opened that she performed the taboo. If there was if there was a joke of it with her spilling blood all the time after that, then yeah, I'd see the issue there. I can only think of like one other time she did like the blood spewing joke, and that was like think during the final arc. Think, and that may have been during the sloth fight.
Mm.
Making
I can't
cracks
even
about
say
it is
that. I don't remember that happening. But maybe.
funny, but Brotherhood just did it so much that I couldn't take the condition seriously at all, really. It very quickly got to the point where it honestly just felt kind of disrespectful to me. But moving on. Fullmetal Alchemist has justly so received a lot of praise for its handling of disabilities. Everything from the complexities of actually having prosthetic limbs, to the fact that Ed's not denigrated for having them, and just generally good representation in general. And broadly speaking, I agree with
Why
that
would
sentiment.
they be denigrated for having prosthetics when they've shown that this is a clearly normal thing amongst their world?
There's an entire town full of people with with automail. Why?
And also, I've never heard anyone else say it, and neither have I ever thought in my head, Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, or Fullmetal Alchemist is so great because they handle disabilities well.
I've never
Yeah,
heard
but
that point.
people have to. People apparently people say it. I don't know.
Never once heard it, never once thought about it. because like you guys said, automail is such a big part of this world. It does. Why would it get mentioned all the time?
Even if Ed gets his arm back at the end and there was a whole, major plot point dedicated to him trying to get rid of his prosthetics and regain his limbs, the fact that he kept the prosthetic leg at the end and the general handling of it up to that point is overall good, save for these points. You see, in both the manga and the anime, after Roy lost his sight and the final battle was done, Dr. Marco decided to offer him a Philosopher's Stone made out of sacrificed Ishvalans in order to regain his eyesight, which is just... There's so much wrong with that, to be honest. So much.
There's so much wrong with your interpretation of that, because what do you expect? How is it supposed to?
I don't think there's a single thing wrong with it. But let's hear Zell out. Maybe Zell has a reasonable explanation for this viewpoint.
Maybe he'll say something. Maybe he'll like explain his point, Gavin. Is that what you're asking?
Yes. I don't see what's so funny.
Much of it. But on the disability front, yes, it's very disrespectful and just unpleasant in general, along with being extremely disrespectful and just unpleasant to me.
I didn't just hear that. The words that Zell just spoke are not the words I just heard. In fact, I'm so sure that's not what I heard. We're gonna listen to it back.
So much of it, but on the disability front, yes, it's very disrespectful and just unpleasant in general, along with being extremely disrespectful and just unpleasant to me.
Oh.
oh no! I was laughing for a different reason this time. It was so disrespectful and unpleasant, as well as being disrespectful and unpleasant as well.
So yeah.
Dude, you need to get a lexicon. What the fuck was that?
So first of all,
Rewrite
what,
that script.
what the fuck? It was disrespectful and unpleasant, and just kind of disrespectful, and as well as being a little unpleasant. Like, what? How do you let that through? Because that had to be in one take, right? There's no way these are two separate takes taken across like 2 different days or whatever, and Zell just didn't notice. That's something you have to notice. How could you not notice that?
Holy shit! We're not even talking about the actual point here.
Oh, that is the actual point, which is why. Like,
why and how is it disrespectful?
It is-
Is Dr. Marco just supposed to kill a bunch more humans to make another Philosopher's Stone?
it is disrespectful. No, because this isn't even about the Isvalans. This is about giving Roy his eyesight back. And I get what Zell is trying to say. So what Zell is attempting to say is, oh, telling someone with a disability that you can take the disability away is disrespectful, and that is stupid, retarded, even idiotic, you might say, because I don't think there's a single okay, I shouldn't say that, but there are very few people in this world who have some disability who would rather have it than not. If there was someone out there who is blind,
especially physical disabilities,
especially physical ones, because there are of all the people in the world who are blind, how many of those people do you think would, if you told them we could cure your eyesight, they would be like, nah. Actually, I take offense to that. Why would you try to give me my eyesight back? Let me experience the beauty of this world. What's wrong with you?
There's reasons why laser eye surgery and glasses exist. Like it's like what are you talking about?
It's just offensive to him if anyone gets LASIK.
It's offensive if you tell someone with a disability that they're like less than human or whatever for having a disability. But if you tell them, hey, you could just not have this disability for X, Y, and Z reason, that's not disrespectful. That's just objectively better.
Like it'd be one thing if he said, well, you probably need your eyesight to run the country better. But did he say that?
I don't remember.
No,
all I remember him
but I remember
saying,
he did not say that.
All I remember him saying is that, hey, if you're gonna help these Fallens, I have this Philosopher's Stone. It's also made of Ishvalens, so I believe that this could help. This will help you help them. Let's help them.
Did he outright say it was made from Ishvalans? Or
Yeah.
is that just something you have to...
He says made from Ishvalans. So Philosopher's Stone, I have one condition. Our planet never seen with much people. Okay, I don't know if it was here, but he definitely did get that stone from Ishvalans, or out of Ishvalans.
Yeah, he got it out of. Yeah, I know that. But like, does he say that? Like, is that?
I don't know if he says it, but we know it.
Yeah, but like it'd be. Yeah, it's like the way Zell's making it out to be. He's making it very uncharitable.
I don't even think it's about the Ishvalans. I'm pretty sure Zell's saying it's disrespectful to disabled people, which is a stupid point.
I'm trying to figure out if he's trying to say it's very disrespectful to use the blood of these minorities to help this guy.
I'm 90% sure that's about the disabled people.
We'll see later.
We will be discussing Ishval and the Ishvalans later, but for now, let's move pleasant to me. We will be discussing Ishval and the Ishvalans later, but for now, let's move on to discuss the villains for a bit.
Never mind.
I don't find Father to be a particularly interesting villain, nor to be a particularly engaging one to watch. He spends most of the series just sort of sitting around on his throne, very much an Orcus on his throne.
So, I'd say that I was more interested in Father given the Hohenheim stuff, but to say that Father in general is uninteresting is no. Yes, when Father is just sitting on the throne, it's not very interesting, but you can say that about any character.
Ed and Al, that was a good
whenever Ed is sitting down eating lunch, he's not very interesting. Like and yeah, you could make the argument that Father spends more time sitting down than Ed would eating lunch or whatever, but it's not like an insane amount of time compared to everything else Father does. Yeah.
Did you hear my point of him meeting Ed and Al for the first time was good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Throne type, but it doesn't really seem to add anything to his character. And while one could argue, oh, he's bland because he removed all his emotions, he very much hasn't, because he's still envious, he's still proud, he still desires things, he very much has all those emotions. So there's nothing really gained from the whole...
Wait, no, pause. He still does. The last thing he said, he still desires. That's not a sin. That's not an emotion you take away.
Oh, desire is greed.
Yeah.
No, but like, Eh,
Happy is lust.
yes, but not really. Like, not really, because that's
Any
still
form
something you
of
like.
anger is wrath.
Like the desire in general isn't a thing that he removed, but greed, lust,
Yeah, he
gluttony,
removed those things, but
those are all desire.
mm, yeah, I guess so.
He created the
Just like
homunculi to
he's playing like he's doing like the master chessboard guy. He's just gonna stay where he is. He has all his pieces in places. So why does he need to move himself?
remove his negative emotions thing because it very clearly didn't happen. And while someone could argue maybe that was the point, the fact of the matter is that still just leaves him being a very bland villain who is really only interesting to me during his first very weird interaction with Ed and Al, and during the flashback when he did actually have personality to spare. The efforts to make us sort of sympathize with him, I think at least, at the end of the series, also mostly just confused me because we don't really have a lot of context for why
Sympathize with
he
him?
felt this way.
I did not sympathize with him whatsoever.
And
That's not.
also,
But that's not the point. That was that was showing he was
Or
being
what his
pathetic.
yeah, that.
He's like, hey, you.
and
When
also,
He
and
tried to
also,
challenge. He tried to challenge
was I saying?
their god, but
Stay
like, you can't.
way out of his lane.
and
Part of that.
what'd you say, Dot?
Wait, I think my connection is fixing itself. I'm mostly just saying he was going like staying out, going out of his lane or something like that. Considering his first desire was just to lead the flask, he managed to do that, and then he went like, "You know what? I'm gonna become God."
Which, yeah, really weird to me that Zell says,
It's confused me because we don't really have a lot of context for why he felt this way, or
we don't have a lot of context for why he felt this way. You just mentioned the flashback with Hohenheim. What do you mean we don't have a lot of context for why he felt this way? That's the entire point of the flashback.
what his nature was, and it honestly just kind of comes off a little like, yeah, remember your place, little monster.
His nature,
Great
he
final
wanted
fight
more
scene.
It
knowledge.
kind of is. Remember your plate, because he's trying to challenge God, and then he is shown to be in this pathetic form afterwards, after failing.
But that's really all I can say for Father. The homunculi are, for the most part, much the same. Sloth is basically just a guy who's always tired. He had a big fight scene, and then he died tired. Gluttony is
Yeah, sure. Sloth was boring. I don't really like him that much.
I thought his fight scene with the Armstrongs was pretty good.
I thought the fight scene
I
was
like the
fine,
fight scenes with it, but yeah,
Sloth
he's white
himself,
about.
Sloth himself, I don't care about.
Yeah,
Easily
he
the-
was just
Easily the worst homunculi.
always hungry, and that's basically all that I can really say for his personality.
So my problem with that,
no,
right?
he also likes lust.
Yeah, that the entire reason Sloth starts, or not Sloth, Gluttony starts going nuts is because he really cares about lust.
Which I still never don't explain why he likes lust in the first place.
They just spend the most time together, I guess. A lot of the other homunculi really keep to themselves.
Did we ever explain their relationship either?
It's not really an explained thing, but I mean, like I said, yeah, they spend the most time together. Envy is also a part of their little trio, but Envy is also split apart from them the most.
He does have the most useful ability for filtration.
Plus, Lust is the only one that, at least I think the only one that treats Gluttony with any kind of respect, because all of the others just treat Gluttony as the dumb fat one.
It's true.
And it's weird that Zell would say that, oh, Gluttony is hungry, and that's the only thing I know about him, while showing this picture where we see more to Gluttony, literally.
He is always hungry, and that's basically all that I can really say for his personality. Lust was just, as I said, a vaguely threatening boob joke. It's just, and Envy's not much.
What do you think he's going to say about Envy? Gavin, before you say it, what do you think he's going to say about Envy? Because this is actually where it's at.
I mean, you already you already said the Envy was one note.
But like, think the entire sentence he's gonna say.
Envy was just one note because he just cares about looking cool.
Press play.
Better. He's basically just malevolent, cruel, and evil without any real depth, but he's also just not very interesting about it either, nor is he a particularly effective villain. He just constantly exists to get curb stomped, basically, outside of his one accomplishment of killing Hughes. It feels
This is it. Envy was manipulative completely, extremely. Like the entire time, like where it's just like the toying with Marco. It's like saying like, "Oh, you have to keep your strength, otherwise we're gonna destroy your town." And then just laughing at the fact that he's still gonna stay alive.
What does Zell count as an accomplishment? Because Zell says the only Envy's only accomplishment
is Fallen War does not count.
Because Zell says that Envy's only accomplishment is killing Hughes, but like you just said, starting the East Fallen War, making the Suntown go back into disarray after Ed and Al leave. Are those not accomplishments?
Apparently not.
Those are father's accomplishments, not to Envy's.
Where's my switch? Of course.
I don't understand the mindset.
Feels like the series tries especially hard to make us pity Envy as he dies by making him incredibly physically fragile and having him try to turn everyone on each other, only for the characters to more or less unprompted say, "Envy, are you envious of the bonds between humanity and how we can overcome our differences?" At which point Envy begins crying, denouncing them, and commits suicide. And none of this really felt like it was really set up, organized, or otherwise foreshadowed, so it just feels very, question mark too.
So, what's funny about that is the inherent thing about envy is that it's about jealousy of other people, and the point that they're making about envy in that scene is that is envy even a person? So, would envy be feeling the most envious out of anybody towards humans, towards actual people? Because envy, as displayed by its literal form of or state of being in that moment, is pathetic. Is nothing. So, what the hell?
To me, Salem and Bradley, on the other hand, do have a fair amount of personality and some degree of agency in the series, though I'll freely admit that I don't think
Did
Salem's motivation for work.
Salem? Did you watch the show? It's Salim.
You fucking. I don't. You can tell I tapped because I just didn't even notice that at first.
Small potatoes and all that, but it's a weird thing to get wrong.
Working for his father are very well explored or given much weight, and Bradley has some degree of agency in the series, though I'll freely admit that I don't think Salem's motivation for working for his father are very well explored or given much weight, and Bradley, on the other hand, I feel is actually given way too much focus and weight. What I'm talking about here is the fact that...
Because he's the fucking king?
Okay, wait, so hold on. First, Pride. So, Zell's point is that Pride doesn't feel Zell doesn't feel like it's adequately explained why Pride is working for Father. I mean, aren't all the homunculi, mostly blindly loyal?
Yeah, other than Greed.
So, why is Pride get singled out here? And also, why wasn't Greed mentioned at all, I just realized? Unless, I guess Greed's coming later.
Maybe he is. I don't know. The only person that knows at this point is Dad.
Only time will tell.
And then, let's hear that Bradley point again.
For working for his father are very well explored or given much weight, and Bradley, on the other hand, I feel is actually given way too much focus and weight. What I'm talking about here is the fact that Scar had his big final confrontation with the guy who oversaw the genocide of his people and the destruction of his nation, and the only real bit of drama he got from that was revealing that he got his arm tattooed with new alchemic sigils. Besides that, pretty much the entire fight is about Bradley. And I'm sorry, I just don't think that the final confrontation between Bradley and Scar should be rendered to be all about homunculus Hitler.
Zell, it'd be really helpful if you'd show that. Because I don't remember it that well. My two friends here do.
I don't fully remember that part that well. And I don't think that he's right about that based off of prior knowledge.
It'd be helpful to everyone here if you show an example, but that's not what we do here, so I guess not.
Trying to break down what he means by like it revolves down to homunculus Hitler.
Who fucking knows? Zell's not gonna explain it.
They are fighting, yes, because what do you expect Scar to do? Just let him live?
I think what Zell's point is that the fight is focused on Bradley rather than Scar, but I don't really know what Zell means by that, because he didn't explain what the fucking fight is. He explained that they fight. But what parts of it are too focused on Bradley? When Scar punches Bradley and it hits Bradley, you see Bradley? Is that a focus on him that you don't like? Question mark.
Is it because Bradley got a very nice fight scene with Gradling?
And also,
prior to this, because
weird
saying,
that
like Bradley got too much focus. When his final confrontation with Scar, all Scar got was apparently him having the resolve to, hey, I've been only using one side of my brother's alchemic research. Now I've resolved myself to using both sides.
Because it's like now he's going against what he thought his religion was.
And also, really weird to bring up that, oh, I think Bradley gets too much focus in the series, and then bring up an example from the end of the fucking series. Because, like Triton said earlier, the entire reason Bradley gets a lot of focus is because he's the king, he's the Fuhrer. So the reason
public figure.
The reason he gets this focus is because he is supposed to be introduced as a character first, and as the homunculus second. He is a part. He's the only homunculus who we get. No, he's only of two homunculus that we get introduced to that we don't know are homunculus yet. And the other one is Bradley's son. So
of course you'd want to flesh out the two very prominent villains that you're going to be fighting.
Typically, characters that are traitors in the series are going to get a lot of focus because they're traitors. That's where a lot of the drama comes from. So it's not exactly going to hit very hard if we go, oh my god, the Fuhrer is a homunculus. If we haven't spent any time with the Fuhrer. But again, we have no examples from earlier on in the series because the examples Zell uses at the fucking end.
I also will freely admit that I do think the 03 series did this somewhat better by establishing Bradley as someone who's almost benign and rather amusing at first, so that the revelation of his villainy came as more of a surprise, but also made perfect contextual sense.
Brotherhood, didn't they change him almost entirely, because now he went from wrath here in Brotherhood to pride in 03?
Yeah, he's pride in 03, and I don't
so
agree.
His character would probably be maybe slightly different fundamentally.
And also, I don't agree with Zell at all. I don't like Bradley as much in 03. I think he was just kind of boring.
All I remember him was being dumb and handing his son his skull.
Yeah.
Didn't really bother doing that. He's established as evil very quickly, and that's pretty much all there is to it until his deathbed, more or less. Kimberly was also another villain who I think overall worked very well. I mostly just don't like his fans, but Kimberly himself, very effective. I do...
Classic, this thing is fine, but the fans, ooh, the fans.
And
what does he mean? What does he even mean by that?
And also, yeah, what does he mean by the fans?
Think he's gonna explain?
Absolutely not. But
again, you don't get to say anything, Ruby fan. And Ruby, this is a different story. The fans of Ruby are the least of my worries.
Yeah. and all,
I
but
don't get why people need to bring up the fans of a series, like talking about the series itself. Because unless, like, I'm trying to think, unless they do something personal to you,
Do you think he has
I
Unless
don't
it's-
see ever the reason to bring them up.
unless it's a thing that is inherently built upon the fact that you're conversing with other people, the fans don't really fucking matter. And also, what does he mean by fans of Kimberly? Are people going around like, yeah, I like Kimberly as a character? That okay? Is that a problem? You also just said you like Kimberly as a character. So what by fans do you mean people who are mass murderers? Question mark. People are like, oh yeah, I love Kimberly. I'm gonna be just like him in real life. Because how many of those people exist? Like actually. I would submit very few, if even a double digits number.
Wait, are you saying mass murderers? Don't go into creepypastas then.
I'd love to know what Zell means by Kimberly fans, but there's like a five
If Zell
percent
ever
chance we
finds
get an
this video,
explanation.
if Zell ever finds this video, I'd have to ask, like, there's just so many points where I'm like, what do you mean by this? What do you like? Can you explain your point? Like, can you actually use vision? Can you use visuals to explain what you're trying to talk about? It's like what AOX talks about. It's the easiest thing in the world. Match what you're talking about. Use the visual medium to talk about what you're showing.
Yeah. By the way, whatever scan Zell uses here is way lower quality than anything else that they've used in the video.
Looks like you have water in the corner of it.
Yeah. What the fuck?
Yeah, this is garbage.
he has
And
some problems?
we're not even halfway through it. Oh, I
Or
don't.
not.
Also, haven't you guys noticed?
That's what.
We're on a human character. Past the homunculus.
Oh, no greed, huh?
So he's not going to
Spoilers,
talk about. Is he?
No, we won't.
I think I find that better. I kind of find that better.
I'm going to assume that if Zell isn't mentioning greed, it's because he likes
He's a good
greed.
character.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's no flaws of greed, which sure, just weird to not mention him at all.
Story-wise, though, mostly in the fact that I don't really understand what was meant to be gained from having him kill his superior officers and then just sit around in prison for 10 years. It seemed to reduce his effectiveness and didn't really accomplish much.
His effectiveness at what?
No, he's just questioning why he wanted to kill his superiors. Well, his superiors wanted to take away the stone. He didn't want that. He killed them all, and he kept the stone
Yeah,
for
and
himself.
he's literally insane.
And also, well,
His
insanity isn't
machinations
really
of his mind are an enigma
not-
even to him.
Insanity's not
Not
a
like
good
that.
Insanity's not a good explanation. However, the reason he did it is what's it? Is the
Because he-
explanation because he wanted to keep the stone and he wanted to keep the stone. So it accomplished that, and also, what effective at what? Like people just say things. People just say things
And in
don't
prison
like
for 10
mean
years,
anything
it
by
seemed to
them.
reduce his effectiveness and didn't really accomplish much.
His effectiveness at
Wait,
what?
what is he supposed to be effective at? He's
Reduce
he's
his
put in prison
effectiveness
for a
as
reason.
a character, as a villain,
I
as
think his effectiveness in combat, considering how he says, "Yeah, it seems I'm a bit rusty at this." He's fighting Scar.
maybe. We'll never fucking know.
I can only think of that because that's the scene I'm seeing in front of me with the screenshot he put.
Oh.
Well, it's not. That's not like Zell. It's not like Zell uses visuals to support their point any other time. So it's a fucking toss up. We'll never know because Zell's not gonna explain it. And why is Scar wearing Adidas?
Does he have an Adidas logo on his pants?
So I just said.
I just noticed that because like
Oh shit, he does. Why?
Why is Scar wearing Adidas?
So it seems just like, very contrived, I think. But
It seems just
Oh,
like
God, another-
very
we got a different
contrived.
type of
I
scan here
think,
too. Look at that.
and also another shitty scan.
Is he taking pictures of these?
It's
This one looks like a
it looks
It's
like
like
photograph.
it.
it's like the glare. It's like there's a glare there.
I'm still stuck
This
on.
is
It
distract-
seems kind of contrived. I think.
accomplish
Just
much.
got out of
So it seems
jail
just like,
and, like,
you know, very contrived, I think.
especially
But
since Kimberly's prisoner condition
It seems
imprisonment
just
had a
like
special
very
condition, and the fact that he
contrived. I
can't use
think
his hands.
you shouldn't be ending statements in a video with "I think." You either you know it or you don't.
character-wise, yes, he was very effective. Most of the other military villains were just so comically incompetent but also vainly evil that there really wasn't much to them, which is fine. People
That's
like
kind
that
of the
are
point of
do
them.
exist.
If they think for themselves too much, they would probably catch on to the bigger picture.
Yeah, and also they like power. Doesn't matter where they get it from.
So it doesn't really bother me, but there's just not much to say about them. I
Or
would also
just
note
easily
that
manipulative, for the most part, idiots.
And also, if it doesn't
I got-
bother you, why'd you mention it?
You just got
Hey, if
gotta
things
just
don't
say
bother
stuff.
him,
Just say stuff for the sake of saying stuff. Apparently.
Just
yeah, 'cause
filling
you'll
time.
leave out greed entirely.
Which will leave out greed.
I do think that Father's whole thing as a brilliant Machiavellian manipulator is kind of undermined by the fact that he desperately had to scramble to get a fifth sacrifice on the promised day. Like, dude, you've been at this for centuries and you still had to scramble for one last sacrifice. Like,
Who
dude,
is
you have
committing
shaped.
taboos on a regular?
Yeah.
Also, I also kind of funny saying he's doing that. He's been at this for centuries. Who also is living that long? He's a homunculus. He can live that long. Humans, not so much.
I guess you could argue that it's convenient that Ed and Al and Izumi do theirs at like sort of around the same like generation, but like that's like that's the reason this is the Promise Day is because there's Hohenheim, Ed and Al, Izumi. We can get one more whenever we want, which is what he does.
Well, the getting the one more was the last resort, considering the methods it took.
Yeah.
Since it like really depowered pride in that sense.
Shapeshifters, you've been at this for centuries. You have tons of people who know alchemy. It really shouldn't be that hard to orchestrate circumstances that would compel someone to break the taboo and then just keep them under lock and key for a while.
Keep them under lock and key for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, what if they die?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. What happens if the people you do like end up either killing themselves or just die? Like maybe that's happened because if he's been at this for 1,000 years, it's probably happened. It definitely happened then.
What if Izumi didn't have someone to take care of her and she bled out and died?
Yeah, because the portal of truth takes things at random. It doesn't like take things.
Well, it kind of takes things at random. It takes things at whatever probably it seems like whatever you value.
What if Ed had bled out and died? What if he hadn't gotten Al back? What if Roy managed to kill himself? All these things that can go wrong. Just put him under lock and key for a while.
Yeah, it apparently it's just that easy. Why haven't they thought about
Apparently,
this before?
it's just that easy.
Oh, it's the things like these. You think this? It's like you think you're onto something, but you're not.
So, yeah, I feel that whole thing was a bit messy too. Another area where Fullmetal Alchemist, both the manga, the 03 anime to an extent, and Brotherhood especially, get a lot of praise is for their handling of women, which I'll freely admit is better than most shonen, but I'll freely admit that I don't think that highly of in many respects. Glossing over the stuff that I've already said about Lust and Izumi, the latter of whom is
One of which you're wrong about, so, you know.
otherwise actually
Okay.
still a good
Actually, no, I'm not going to say anything.
character. I have some rather mixed feelings on the rest. They've certainly all got a fair amount of depth, but I don't.
And also, it's Sheska, not Jessica. But not our fault. Not our fault. She has a weird name.
Who said Jessica? Was it you?
That was you.
Oh, I didn't even notice. I thought you were preparing for him to say Jessica for some reason.
Though earlier we were talking about about things that Hughes did, and then that was like, oh, he hired Jessica, and I was like, yeah, that's probably her name.
I said Sheska. I said Sheska. I know what I said.
Then I guess I just heard
I don't
Jessica.
remember.
Oh,
I
fuck
don't
me.
remember any of that.
I have some rather mixed feelings on the rest. They've certainly all got a fair amount of depth, but I don't feel it's very explored in some cases like Sheska or Maria Ross, or that in some
They have depth, but it's not explored. What?
You know, I think he likes to think. I don't want to bring up Booby at this point because it's like, yeah, you have female characters, but then a lot of them are just really bad.
What does having depth but not having it explored mean? Because, like, obviously when it comes to like actual people, someone could have depth but you could not know about it. But in a story where you are viewing the whole thing, if someone has depth, you probably already know about it. That's probably the reason you know they have depth, is because you've seen it. So how could someone have depth but have it not be explored? Unless he means that the concept of them has depth, but I don't really know what the concept of Sheska is.
I'd say maybe for her it was the fact that she viewed herself as an unhelpful book nerd, and then turns out later, hey, her memory is actually pretty good. And guess what?
Which is
Forged
it getting explored, which is why I'm confused.
You'd hope the people explain what you mean.
Like the only possible conclusion I can come to is that what he means by they have depth but it isn't explored is like they have an idea that presents depth, but that idea isn't explored, but that doesn't apply to the characters you mentioned.
So is this a fan colored one? Because if this is the officially colored manga, there's a lot of white spaces in this.
Yeah.
That's probably a fan coloring. I hope.
cases it just doesn't feel as weighty as it could be. I've seen lots of praise heaped on Brotherhood, for instance, for exploring Riza Hawkeye's backstory, but her backstory in both the Brotherhood series and manga is largely defined by her abusive relationship with her father and Roy, and she doesn't actually get to be all that effective.
Abusive
despite
relationship with her father.
She doesn't really get to be all that effective. Which should explain.
Trying to figure out the whole abusive father angle he just threw out. Is it because of this tattoo? At it?
I would assume so, but the fucking what assumption can we make about Zell?
He's very uncharitable towards men.
I mean, you can make an argument for tattooing all of the research on it, but I mean, yeah, he's just not gonna really explain it at all.
And I'll celebrate the day when Zell never uses the word effective again, because please explain it ever.
Relationship with her father and Roy, and she doesn't actually get to be all that effective despite the added exploration. She's largely useless when she thinks that Lust has killed Roy and needs to be protected by Al.
He's in
while
grief. What did you?
What about when?
So
Oh,
in
you
one
wanna talk
moment,
about greed
so
right
in
now?
one moment she didn't act, therefore she is useless. Is that a slight against her character that in one moment she didn't act? Is Hughes a bad character because he didn't hit the epic counter on Envy when he shot him?
Roy goes ahead and does all the work. This same general event happens again with Envy, after which she also reveals that she'll kill herself if she has to kill him or he dies after they've done saving the world.
Wait, pause
Generally
for a second.
Yes,
Who are the
please.
opponents that Riza faced that make her ineffective? Is it the homunculus that could regenerate so fast?
Actually, how is she ineffective again when she basically picks out who fucking she picks out who Envy was out of the two, being very smart with what to say.
Nope, she's not effective.
Well, look at her. Look at her being non-effective in this
Look at
screenshot.
her.
He's
She's not
posting.
being very effective right now. Sitting there, asleep, while Roy does all the
Covered in
work.
tomato juice.
Speaking, I don't like saying it, but she does feel a bit like a faux action girl, someone who has the skills to be present, but for the most part still ends up needing to be saved or otherwise protected. She's
Someone
In terms
didn't
of,
watch
like,
Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. That is the only conclusion
look
that I
what
can
she's
come to.
facing. Look at what she's facing against. She got guns. They're not good on. They're not that great against homunculus.
It's like, what do you?
Expect to pull an anti-homunculus bullet out of nowhere?
Why is
She's
this?
still better
Why?
than most
What do you
examples of
say?
that,
Against
but
human characters, guess what? She takes them down pretty effectively.
I wouldn't say it's, lighting the world on fire. Olivia
Can
Armstrong
you
is someone I
go back for a second? I
To
didn't
where?
hear for a second.
still ends up
Just
needing to be saved or otherwise protected. She's still better than most examples of that, but I wouldn't say it's, lighting the world on fire. Olivia Armstrong is
She's
someone
better
I
than most examples of that, but not lighting the world on fire. You know what? I'm not even gonna ask what he means by that because at this point, it's worthless to ask.
actually dislike even more and don't think works very well as a character. Like, her moral framework very much just feels like it's incoherent or otherwise a roulette wheel.
Now, we know that Zell's not going to explain this, but what do we think Zell means by this?
No, he'll try to
I legitimately don't know.
explain it.
This is what he does when you need to.
No, wait. This is gonna be one of the rare examples where he tries to give an example.
Okay, then
Oh.
let's hear it
Oh.
then.
For instance, she's very harsh about her brother leaving the war in Ishval, but she also protects an Ishvalan soldier, but she also naturally does nothing to protect any other Ishvalans from the genocide. So, what is your
Pause.
actual moral
Pause.
stance here?
Oh, okay. I wish he didn't give an example because now he's looking dumb. She's upset that he didn't follow his orders. She cares about the results getting completed.
So, I don't know
Cares
what.
about those following orders. Miles was still following orders. Therefore, he's a good soldier to her. Armstrong collapsed and had to be retreated from the front lines of the Ishval War. To her, that is a disgrace.
And she says this outright. It's like, all we care about is results right here. Please.
Lady, do you
Like-
just only protect him because he's a soldier? Despite knowing the villain's plan, she still decides to play right into their hands by killing all the Drachma forces as well and doesn't consider
Did
doing
you,
that a
you expect her to try to make peace with the invading force?
problem. And she's very much got that thing going where it's like, I can be classically beautiful and also incredibly strong and masculine at the same time. And that's just a trope that has a lot of baggage attached to it that I'll probably explore in its own episode. But suffice
Hey
That seems-
guys, there's
that
this
seems like a
there's this
manga only
there's
thing.
this trope that I don't really like. I'll explain it some other time. Fuck you.
This is why I
It's
hate
funny
when,
because
this is why I
Izumi
hate when
said
he
to me
makes
that
the
too.
stupid,
She is
like,
freakishly
4-minute
strong, and
content.
guess what? Still beautiful.
This is what I hate when he makes the 4-minute content. It's like, oh, I'm gonna go into this in another time. I'm gonna go into this in another time. It's like, why don't you explain it now? Why don't
to
you
say,
explain it like?
A little
And,
preview.
And also, that might be a Zell video I check out by myself in the future, because what the fuck does he mean? Oh, a masculine character that is also beautiful has a lot of baggage. What the fuck?
Is he trying to say that he wanted like Olivia to look like those two right next to her?
Na-
Armstrong clone?
Who fucking knows? Who fucking knows?
Funny enough, they never appear after like their encounter with trying to remember his name.
Havoc.
Not Havoc. It was the coal mining guy.
Oh,
Oh, now I'm gonna be doing something else right now.
this isn't me taking issue with the fact that she's both feminine and fierce or anything like that, or with the idolization of violence and strength or anything like that. It's a shonen series, it's action. I'm just not a fan of the whole, she gets to be super physically powerful and strong, but also has to be really feminine and traditionally beautiful by the standards of, Western society. I've seen
I mean, it's not like we ever see Olivier naked, so she could be pretty built under those clothes.
Well, technically, I want to say there was like a little funny short where she just like puffed up her chest and the buttons on her shirt all popped out.
Well, that's about breast size, not about muscles.
It could also be muscles, lung expanding, the pectorals, the lady pecs.
Seeing the series praised for its handling of Winry, and I don't think she's a bad character. Again, I just don't really think she's lighting the world on fire. Her best
Now, what do you mean by that?
Now, okay,
Because
we
when
know he's not gonna.
because when I hear, well, yeah, we know, but let's try and at least try attempt to decipher it.
So often.
So what I hear, or what I think when I hear, oh, they're cool or whatever, but they're not lighting the world on fire, is they're good, they're just not one of the best. And it's like, okay, right, but we're not gonna denigrate a character because they're not one of the best. If we were to say that about every character we ever came across in everything, every review of every piece of media would go, this character's good, but they're not lighting the world on fire. Though the alternative meaning to that could be
lighting the world on fire.
though I would assume that it'd be like some of the best characters like in the world. But then again, then there's the other meaning that I could think of when I hear that, which is that they're a good character, but they're not like changing the world or anything, which that applies to even less characters.
Changing the world is in our world or the world
in
they
our,
live in.
Our world. Like a character so good or whatever, so well written that they're like changing how we think about either characters or our society. Which that applies to so few characters. Again, why even mention it about every character you come across?
So would Goku
No
be
clue.
lighting the world on fire?
Maybe.
I question this dude's ability to research to make any informative content.
showing
That's
would
what
be
I'm
the
gonna say.
kidnapping trick, but beyond that, she mostly just exists to patch up Ed, and there's also her confrontation with Scar. And
Yep, she only exists to patch up with Ed. She only exists to patch up Ed. That's her only job. Only thing she does in the whole
Okay.
Help
series.
deliver a baby.
Nope,
Only thing she
nope.
does?
She only exists to patch up Ed. Shut up.
I don't find her confrontation with Scar particularly gripping, but that's more for how it impacts Scar's character than it does hers, but I also don't really
Then why are you mentioning it here, you fucking idiot?
Oh no.
It more impacts Scar's character than Winry, then mention it in the Scar section, not in the Winry section. That doesn't make any fucking
Why is
sense!
he using-
As
Why
we
is
see
he
throughout this
using
video,
the fucking? Why is he using this? This isn't the Brotherhood.
as we've seen throughout this video,
Yeah, it
he
is.
is not good at ordering his thoughts in order. Take a look at the Havoc scene. He really plays things out of order to try to give his point about the validation.
think it adds much to her character to just try and shoot someone as vengeance and then be told her hands were for healing and then to just stop, and that it's
Yeah, that's definitely Brotherhood.
just not very interested in
Okay, then
exploring, you know.
why does it look so weird?
Because Zell got the lowest quality footage she possibly could have. I can literally count the pixels. And according to YouTube, this isn't 1080p, so this is the highest quality Zell could have possibly gotten.
Maybe try it again, because sometimes that lies to us.
It looks like a fucking video game.
It wouldn't have done it for this long.
Her character to just
Try
try
and
and
shoot
shoot someone
No,
as
this is a
vengeance.
GBA movie. This is a GBA cartridge movie.
This is literally some shit you see on a DS screen. There's a Fullmetal Alchemist game, and it's like it pre-earns the cutscenes.
You mean rips the cutscene from the anime?
Or rips the cutscenes, yeah.
And then be told her hands were for healing and then to just stop, and that it's just not very interested in exploring, you know, the fact that Scar is the survivor of a genocide who killed her parents seemingly in a daze or in a fit of post-traumatic stress disorder. Like, it very much seems like they went out of their way to make it as blameless as possible and then still treated Scar like a monster for it.
Blameless.
And
Wait, pause.
Wait.
Yep, they tried to make it as blameless as possible. Scar, the character who goes off about how much he wants to kill the white people.
Oh my god, when she meets him again in up in the north, she does not forgive him. He's very much to blame for the death of her parents. Since they are the ones who saved him.
He's trying to say that the series tries to make it blameless by like, Scar was just doing it because he was in a daze or whatever, like he wasn't thinking, when that's not really the case. It might have
We're
altered
back
his
with the Adidas pants.
also that it definitely altered his thinking, I guess, if he's in a daze or whatever after just waking up, but that's still a thing that Scar would have done because that's like his whole thing.
So,
It's not like if he wasn't in a daze, he would have gotten up and been like, "Ah, thank you, Rock Bells. I shall be on my way."
like, look at this. This screenshot has much higher quality than the anime images he's been showing.
Cause who fucking knows where Zell got those from?
I want to say he got this one from a meme, considering all the Adidas logos.
Probably. Why is Scar wearing Adidas? That's weird.
Winry act accordingly. Lan Fan is a lot like Hawkeye in the sense that she's also a badass warrior, though she gets to be a bit more effective and involved in the fights, who is extremely defined by her relationship to a male character. Again, it's not bad.
Oh no, a female character has a relationship with a male character. The horror.
I swear to God.
Fucking hate these people.
How can you
God,
not?
God forbid we ever get a series where there are siblings and one's a brother, one's a sister. Would Fullmetal Alchemist be bad if Al was a girl and it's like, oh, Al a lot of Al's character is about a male character? We would make that fucking argument because it's stupid.
I just feel it's worth noting that so many of these women characters are defined primarily by their relationships to the men in their lives.
Is it primarily, though? Is Riza Hawkeye's character primarily defined by Roy?
No, it's not.
When we think about Riza Hawkeye's character, do we go Roy, blank, 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 blank?
While none of the men are defined similarly. My main exception to this character.
Well, none of the men are defined similarly. It's funny you say that. A lot of Ed and Al's journey is defined by a specific character who may or may not be a female.
Female? Huh. Oh, that's kind of odd.
It's really weird.
It's almost like this dude is actually just selectively using points.
Weird how the main protagonists of this series, their whole journey, their whole inspiration is kicked off by their mother. Which, if you didn't know, Zell, is a female. Just in case you weren't aware.
Who taught them alchemy further?
A female. Who's literally making sure Edward doesn't die due to his automail?
The black guy under Olivier's command, a lot of his, you could say a lot of his defining or definition is in relation to Olivier. Just in case you didn't know.
I'd say all the men in North Briggs have their defining relationship with Olivia Armstrong.
It's really fucking weird.
Wise is May, who I think was very effective, skilled, played her role very effectively.
Stop saying the word effective.
Stop saying effective.
You don't. You earn that language when you actually understand what you're trying to say.
No issues with her character. I do have some contentions with her narrative. Mostly how it just seems very unfair that of the two Zingi's royalty, she was the one who had the chance to go home, win the prize, save and protect her clan, and for purely moralistic reasons, she decided to come back, throw all that away because it was the right thing to do, and then it's Ling who ends up getting to be the royal king and take over the empire.
Wait. So, unless I'm mishearing, is Zell saying it's a bad thing that May chose the right thing to do?
Should have just let the country to die.
Like, I'm not crazy, right? That's what Zell is saying. That May is wrong. That May is wrong for choosing the right thing to do.
And her award is basically that he's not going to penalize or make the other clans suffer. Just feels a little unfair.
There's not supposed to be a reward. The entire point is she chose the right thing to do. What the fuck? fuck?
But you see, a male character won in the end, and we can't have that with Zell.
What the fuck?
I hope that's not what he's trying to say.
That's what it sounds like he's trying to say.
I have
Fair,
I have more faith in people.
No, jumping to
We
another
have talked
serious
to this man in the comments before.
Yeah, that's true. You shouldn't have any faith in
You're
Zell,
right.
considering
You're
everything.
right. I shouldn't have
you've
faith.
talked to
I
him
should
about.
not have faith in this dude. Legitimately, it was brick wall. Legit brick wall.
topic, I find that the series has a tendency to romanticize trauma and abuse to varying degrees. This isn't just the somewhat jokey way that Izumi slapping around the Elrics is treated. This is more about how, for instance, everyone in Leora is just like, oh yeah, you know, our city was briefly torn apart, you know, neighbor killing neighbor, the whole place was super damaged.
I feel
Like
secret
Bill
Died,
Davis.
but you know, we're putting one foot in front of the other, and everything is just great. It's
So how is that romanticizing trauma?
Oh, but you see, they're getting better after they're fighting. Can't happen.
Hold on. No, because maybe I'm just
Trying to be
misremembering.
happy after they're trying to be happy after a riot. How
Maybe
dare
I'm
they?
misremembering what romanticizing means. So let's just look it up real quick.
Always stare into the void.
Also, Gavin, can you hear this? Like, are you hearing any of this?
What? I can hear clicks.
Okay, sorry. Probably should put that away then.
Okay, romanticize. Deal with or describe in an idealized or unrealistic fashion. Make something seem better or more appealing than it really is. So, people going, hey, we've been through a lot of trauma, but it's time that we get over it, is making the trauma look better than it actually is? Isn't it like the exact fucking opposite?
If they really wanted to romanticize it, it would be like, hey, we went through this trauma, and guess what? We're better off for it.
Yeah.
They never said we're better off for it. We're just like, we're just trying to pick up where we're
They're saying we're trying to get past it. We're trying to get over it.
Yeah.
It's basically a case of trauma is only allowed to make you a better person, a stronger person, and if you become worse or aggressive or bitter about it, then you're bad and you're wrong. I'm sorry.
That's a ruby point. I can feel it right there.
And also, yeah, it's a point. But
That's with Cinder.
Oh, fuck.
So
yeah.
again, I don't think that Zell is, well, no, not I don't think Zell isn't using romanticize correctly, because it's not romanticizing trauma to say if you don't get over your trauma you're a bad person, which the series doesn't even say that. You can interpret that if you want to, but that's your prerogative, and also you're wrong. But
Say the series is more about how you should deal with these problems, and that you should
Also,
end it instead of
if you
continuing
don't
it.
get over your trauma, you're not going to be better for it.
exactly.
I don't know what he's trying to say.
If a series is bad for saying you will be better off if you deal with your trauma, then I guess I like bad series then, because you should deal with your trauma rather than letting it fester. God damn it, Zell's a fucking idiot.
Sorry if this seems rather simplistic, but I
Yeah.
feel like it's more or less on level with how the series treats trauma. It's something you have to learn from and grow to be a better person from. Trauma can never just be trauma. It's always character growth. We are
A lot of trauma is you have to be better, though.
Have to learn to accept what has happened and move on from it, not let it sit and fester.
I think what Zell's trying to say is that a character can never just like have trauma and then not get over it. But like that's where plot comes
You didn't
from.
get over it.
That's where plot comes from. If a character has something traumatic happen to them and they just go, "Yep, that traumatic thing happened to me," and I'm not going to do anything to try and move past it or mention it in any way, then there'd be no plot, there'd be no character. So obviously, if a character has trauma in a series, they're going to try and get over it because that's what that's a lot of what their character is. That's a lot of what the plot is going to be about. That's where the drama comes from.
I'm trying to think of like, this is probably because I watched it recently. You guys seen the show Legends of Vox Machina?
Nope.
Nope.
I recommend it. It's pretty good. There's a similar character kind of goes to that. His name was Percy, and his demons got so bad they were trying to take over him, and he had to learn to forgive in order to get past it.
Now reaching the home stretch, and the last 2
The home stretch. Long ass home stretch.
points very much intermingle because of their narrative purpose and positions,
He means the last
namely
third.
Sure.
Fullmetal Alchemist neoliberalism and its handling of race via Ishval.
Can you rewind that?
Yeah,
What did you say?
I think we all need to hear that one again.
2 points very much intermingle because of their narrative purpose and positions, namely Fullmetal Alchemist neoliberalism and its handling of race via Ishval. For more
So where do we think Zell's going to go with this?
Liberalism.
Det already knows, but Triton,
No,
where do
okay,
we
here's-
think
okay.
Zell's going to go with
Here's
this?
here's what happened. Like sent me a Discord message, and it was like the word neoliberalism, and I was so fucking confused. Like, I was thinking, like, did you just accidentally send that? I'm like, this is a point? Oh fuck. I
So-
don't know what he could possibly say.
Just curious, because I have no idea what neoliberalism means. Neoliberalism.
Yeah, let's look it up.
Neoliberalism is contemporarily used to refer to market-oriented reform policies such as eliminating price controls, deregulating capital markets, lowering trade barriers, and reducing, especially through privatization and austerity, state influence in the economy. So, TLDR, it's about how the government influences the economy. Yeah, I think
Huh?
so.
I'm smart in math. I'm smart in math and science. I don't understand government stuff.
So, I mean, yeah, the TLDR was it's basically how the government it's a strategy about how the government affects the economy, which I'm really curious to know what this has to do with Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Okay, now that one question. Do you think he's using the word incorrectly?
Almost like 70%, 80% chance.
Oh, yeah. I honestly no clue what he could possibly be saying. Like,
Well,
it's one of
let's
that
find
is legitimately one of the weirdest sentences I have heard.
Let's see.
more in-depth understanding of what neoliberalism is, I recommend Sean's Harry Potter video.
If you want to know what I mean by neoliberalism, check out this 1 hour and 45-minute video instead of me explaining
Holy
it in my
shit!
video where I'm saying
Dude!
things to you.
Dude, Zellwriter, if somebody asks you for what you mean by this word, and you say go look up this video, that is not a good explanation.
Like, at least give a TLDR. Just shorten it in any way.
I just got the biggest grin on my face right now from you two listening to this.
Which I'm not referencing here just for funsies. I actually think that both Harry Potter and Fullmetal Alchemist, though Fullmetal Alchemist does it better, do actually have some rather heavy commonalities in how they touch on serious topics and then don't really explore them in what I'd call a mature manner. Again, Fullmetal Alchemist does it better, but I still think it's worth talking about. So, for example, in Harry Potter, the 5th book, there is a statue that shows a witch and a wizard holding up their wands and being looked on adoringly by several different magical species that they're oppressing. There's a big battle at the end of the book where the statue ends up destroyed, and there's a big speech about how the prejudice in the magical world and their systematic abuse of the various magical species and Muggleborns is what allows people like Voldemort to rise to power. This is then not really explored at all beyond be nice to your slave, and nothing really changes at the end of the book, with an epilogue set several years in the future. There's no goblin students attending Hogwarts, there's no real sign that the Centaur are being treated better. Nothing has fundamentally changed beyond removing some bad people from positions of power and putting good people in their positions of power.
So, have any of us seen Harry Potter, or read Harry Potter rather?
I've seen it, but I don't remember much of it. I haven't seen the Deathly Hollows. part 1 or part 2, actually, I think.
It's been a
So
while since I've
I have
seen
no
movies.
clue what he's trying to say.
I,
This is
I know what he's trying to say. He's trying to say that that it's bad in a series when a serious topic is presented or brought up or whatever, and then not like expanded upon or changed in any way. Because I know nothing about Harry Potter, but from what Zell described, which knowing Zell could be completely wrong, but from what Zell described, the reason it's bad is because in the fifth book or whatever, they show how people the wizards that are currently exist in the world oppressing magical species is what allows evil people like Voldemort to get to rise to power, and then later on in the series, years later, nothing's really changed because they're still oppressing the magical species. So it kind of falls flat in Harry Potter. But again, I don't know anything about Harry Potter, so this could just be completely wrong.
Given his track record, do we give him the benefit of the doubt of him being right?
No, especially since I'm
No.
curious to see
why
how
would
this
you
applies to
do
Fullmetal
that?
Alchemist Brotherhood.
Or in other words, there's no bad systems, only bad people. So just replace the bad people with good people and the system will be fine. I can assure you there are a metric ton of resources on why that's not true. And while again,
I can assure you there are a ton of resources about why that's not true. I'm not gonna tell you though.
Jesus Christ! Yep, reading my mind, because this is terrible. Let me just. This is terrible. It's like, I think he thinks he's saying stuff, but like, you're not explaining it. Like,
Understands what he's saying, but we who do not, he still are left in the dark.
Fullmetal Alchemist doesn't do this as badly as Harry Potter, it still very much does the same general thing in my experience. Fullmetal Alchemist, for its part, touches on themes of genocide, military corruption, dictatorships, and abuse. However, while it does portray these subjects, especially in the manga when we get to see more detailed flashbacks to Ishval, it doesn't really explore them in a way that I would consider mature. Let's use Roy as our reference point for this, as he is essentially the driving force of this part of the narrative. He participated in the Ishbalian genocide. He feels terrible about it and wants to become fewer by playing the political game so that he can ultimately enact changes that will see him and all other war criminals judged. That's a great idea, but it doesn't end up actually happening. He just ends up becoming Fuhrer at the end of the story. Or as the author put it,
pause it right here. Pause it right here. Okay. Now this is where I'm going to call. I'm going to be saying, pot meet kettle. You watch again. I'm going to keep saying this movie. You're gonna say, they don't explore this well. Ruby doesn't explore this almost at all with the racism and faunus. You're gonna be like trying to argue this, and then at the same time being like, now this is fine.
The easiest example to point out in Ruby is the fact that Zell has a problem with there's only bad people, not bad systems thing, and like the white Fang in Ruby, the entire reason they're evil now is because there are bad people in charge, because the good people fucking quit. Blake's parents are just like, yeah, we don't really do it anymore. For some reason, that doesn't get explained. Zell. But also, this would be a fair point. Roy becomes Fuhrer, and then nothing really changes. Except we don't fucking know that, because then the series ends! There's no, okay, in Harry Potter, I see that being a problem, because, well, I don't know how long the epilogue is in Harry Potter, but let's assume it's long enough to see, like, have there been any changes?
It'd be about the same.
I mean, I wouldn't say so, because in Harry Potter we get to see Harry and them as older people, but in Fullmetal Alchemist's epilogue we just see this is the way things are. Just a brief "Where Are They Now" segment, and then things that have nothing to do with the government. There's no epilogue where we sit with Roy and we go, hey Roy, what are you doing about the Ishvalans, or about the governmental system?
That's Zell's problem. He wants that, but we didn't get that, so now he's making that an issue.
But that's okay. It's only an issue in concept though, because because I understand the Harry Potter problem. In Harry Potter, it is actively brought up and said, "Hey, this is what needs to change." And then years later, we see no change. But in Fullmetal Alchemist, it's brought up, "Hey, this is what needs to change," but we don't get an epilogue where we see, "Hey, things haven't changed," because the epilogue isn't long enough to see that. Again, for the Harry Potter thing, I don't know if this is like accurate or whatever, but the problem that the fact that they're going around in the epilogue and there's like, oh, there's no extra species Hogwarts students. Okay, that's a problem. But the epilogue in Fullmetal Alchemist isn't like Roy's walking down the street and he's like, "Hey, what's up, Ishvalans?" No, that's not a part of the epilogue.
Leader of the country, but ultimately nothing seems to have structurally changed. The military is still the thing in power.
You wouldn't fucking know, would you? Because the epilogue doesn't go into depth about that.
I would very much say it's changed because guess what? It was Central Forces that were doing a lot of the massacring.
Well, Zell's problem is that it's still a central force, though. Again, the problem it's bad when it's the system isn't bad, the people are bad. So Roy hasn't changed the system; he's just a good person in power now. Which would be a fair point. Which would be a fair point if we saw more of the epilogue, but we don't. So you can't say that. For all we know,
like,
there have been changes.
he's not giving it, but he's not going to be charitable enough to say there have been changes because if he doesn't, to him, I don't see it. It's therefore still a problem.
If the criticism is that we should have seen it, then fine. But you're creating a criticism out of something that doesn't exist.
If you think he's going to do that, just wait till you see what happens next.
And the only real problem with the military was that it was being led by a cabal of inhuman monsters who are blamed for all the crimes that the military commits, rather than the humans actually enacting those orders and committing those crimes. It just feels like a very simplistic and almost childish exploration of the subject to me, and it also begs the question,
Hey,
what was Roy's...
Kind of like Ruby, how the White
Kind of
Fang
like
are
Ruby.
supposed, like how the White Fang are trying to find equality, but then when you realize, oh, they don't know how to write that, they're just evil. They're just evil, and except for the ones that are not going to be using violence. Those ones, those White Fangs are good.
Yeah, there's
So
the good
anyone
White
that's gay.
Fangs. They're just the good ones. There's only the bad White Fang. They're the evil, no good, stinky ones. Who also don't get faces. Because it's way easier to say this character is evil if you don't give him a face.
And it's also way easier to do. It's also easier to not have to sympathize with them.
Weird how all the White Fang that turn good, like Ilya, they get their masks taken off and stop wearing them, but then all the ones that get arrested at the end of Volume 5 don't. That's really weird.
His plan if another Ishbal was ordered and he would be expected to commit genocide again? Would he continue playing the game, hoping that it would all be worth it eventually?
He wouldn't be playing the game anymore, he's fucking Fuhrer!
Are you...
He's saying, he's trying to say, before he becomes Fuhrer, if another Ishbal happened.
But that's not
a question that was never in there to begin with.
And also,
that there's no answer to the question he just made up.
And also, I thought we were talking about after the system has changed, or after Roy becomes Fuhrer. If we're talking about before Roy has become Fuhrer, then he isn't in the position to change the system. So that goes against the criticism you were making before. So which is it? That Roy isn't changing the criticism that Roy isn't changing the system now, or that he isn't changing the system afterwards? Or is it both? Neither of which exist!
He's upset that Roy's ideals weren't challenged with the hypothetical he just invented in his head.
Literally, his only problem is with hypotheticals.
Or would he eventually have to make the moral decision and make the break from it, even though that means he'd have to sacrifice his ambitions? This sort of question is something...
What are you talking about? He's the Fuhrer now. At this point, he's making the decisions.
No, I'm not gonna lie. Everything he just said went in one ear and out the other. I was not paying attention.
This is why he's saying he's sacrificing his ambitions. This is a point before he becomes the Fuhrer.
So at that point, what? I don't understand.
He made a hypothetical for Roy's ideals to be challenged and is upset that his hypothetical was never addressed.
Even though that means he'd have to sacrifice his ambitions. This sort of question is something I feel you'd have to ask when exploring this kind of premise, but Roy's never put in that sort of position, so it never gets addressed. And on
So then don't bring it up if it's not a real thing. It's thing you brought up. It doesn't exist. You made it
It's a
up.
headcanon he made up and then is upset that it wasn't addressed.
You made it up and then are upset that it wasn't addressed. What's wrong with you?
our final point, the handling of the
Australian.
Ishbalan War, the Ishbalan characters, and the Ishbalan people in general. I'm going to try and handle this efficiently to make my point clearly. So we'll start with the genocide.
I don't think you should do that. You should probably go in depth.
Zell handling things efficiently could never.
Better in the manga than in the Brotherhood anime, though I don't think either one handled it particularly well because they both fell into the same trap that, say, a lot of American films do when discussing Vietnam, namely talking about how hard it was for the soldiers to go around committing these atrocities and discussing their trauma at the expense of their victims. Because Ishbalan characters outside of Scar and Miles don't have names, they don't have identities. We get almost...
Is that true?
Sorry.
I don't remember any of their names really. At the same time,
Yeah,
I'm trying to think.
I don't remember
How
their names,
big of
but
a-
I don't know if that means that they don't have names.
Just trying to recall.
What is he trying to advocate for?
He's saying that that in the series it's bad that when it comes to the Ishvalan War, it's presented as like, oh, look at how bad it was for the soldiers on our side, but then on the other side we don't really know anything about the Ishvalans other than Scar and Miles, which isn't true because we know about Scar's brother.
We do though. We know we're looking at it.
Also, yeah, you're looking at it, but we don't know their
We're
names, so
looking at the people dying.
we don't know their names,
It is
so
the reason they don't show that is because it's literally fucking obvious.
yeah, but we don't know their we don't know their names though, so
the people that are dying, they are going through good stuff right now. You don't need
but we
that
don't know
spelled
their
out for you.
names, so
Guess he's placing the faceless.
You don't need that fucking
argument
spelled out for
onto
you.
them?
Yes, people that are dying, it is not good.
have you considered the fact that we don't know their names?
No, I don't need to because that's fucking obvious.
There's no actual exploration of them, or their culture, or their feelings on the matter, and they mostly just exist in order to serve as backstory fodder for the military characters and convenient sources for allies right at the end of the story.
Sure, Zell. Whatever you say. By the way, isn't it funny how in Ruby, a lot of the Faunus, we don't know jack shit about them until they conveniently become allies at the end of Volume 5?
It's just hypocrisy.
It writes itself.
And also exposition dumps when it comes to Scar and Winry's backstory, in which they also spend time talking about how we know not all Amestrians are bad, even though, you know, you've committed genocide against us and destroyed our nation and sent us on the run. They basically exist to
You're using
serve
an
as
image where the people literally were held by the rock bells.
Yeah, and also, the way you say that, it makes it sound like if someone if a race of people commits an atrocity, you're just supposed to assume the entire race is bad. Unless he's saying that it's not logical for the Ishvalans to say that, because for all they know, they are all bad. But what if the Ishvalans are, I don't know, intelligent in any capacity and can think, well, we're probably not all bad.
I'm wondering his view on Germans.
I mean, from how this is presented, Zell might just think all Germans are bad.
background inciting incidents and model minorities, rather than their own characters with their own narrative or their own actual weight within the story outside of how sad killing them made the military.
So, here's the thing about that, right? Is that the reason we get a lot more of the military side of how the war affected them is because most of our characters are in Amestria. We're part of the military. It's unfortunate that there are so few important Ishvalan characters in the main cast, but the story takes place from the viewpoint of characters within Amestria. So unless we get a fucking Last of Us 2 type segment where an entire segment of the series takes place from the Ishvalan's point of perspective, then that's not really going to be a thing that we get. It's unfortunate, but it's not bad.
Also, I'd like to point this out. You know why? You want to know why they a lot of the time there was a trope of the showing the atrocities of what the military has to do? It's because that's not often talked about. That's not the reason it's not talked about. It's not talked about the PTSD stuff. It's more talked about what the victims go through. It's not talking about what the people have to actually pulling the trigger have to do. I don't think Cell understands that. And I know he doesn't understand that based off of the Ironwood video.
Yeah, the Ironwood video.
Or when they're, literally objectified and used to heal the Amestrian soldiers who committed genocide against them so that they don't have to deal with blindness.
That's a bad thing. Oh, wait, hold on, no. Wait a minute, wait. Is he talking about Roy?
Heal the Amestrian soldiers who committed genocide against them so that they don't have to deal with blindness.
Okay.
Roy has just already been shown that he wants to help rebuild
and
fix.
The Ishvalans are
why
objectified.
Is he not giving him...
So Zell's point is that the Ishvalans are objectified because they are because they are literally turned into an object and then presented as a possibility for giving Roy his eyesight back. So that's presented as a bad thing. Like, throughout the entire series, the entire reason the Elrics go, yeah, maybe we shouldn't get a Philosopher's Stone is because they go, oh, they're made with humans? That might be a no-go.
That is a no-go for them.
So it's bad that they were
share the same sentiments as them.
And also that is presented as a moral argument. They are already dead, but is it immoral to use the Philosopher's Stone because it was made with humans? That is a moral question that the series asks of you, but I guess Zell isn't mature enough to answer that.
He doesn't even use the Philosopher's Stone himself first. He has Havoc healed first before himself.
This is a moral question that the series asks both the characters and the audience, but I guess Zell is not mature enough to answer that.
Then there's Miles, the model minority who wants to change the Amestrians' opinion of Ashvalan people by being a good soldier and loyal citizen, and I'm just like, my dude, they have already committed genocide against your people. Why are you acting like the problem was your people in the first place rather than with them? The fact they have...
So, something tells me that Zell does not like Martin Luther King Jr. Because that's very much what it sounds like right now. Because Miles' standpoint is, if I present myself as a model citizen, then people can look at me and say, that's an Ishvalan who isn't a crazy person. Maybe we were wrong about Ishvalans, which was also Martin Luther King Jr.'s standpoint, which was if you act non-violently, if you show them that you are as human as they are, then maybe it will change people's opinions. But I guess Zell doesn't fuck with that.
Maybe not. I have no fucking clue at this point. This dude is...
On MLK's birthday, Zell crosses his arms and says, harumph.
Do you even know of it, considering he's in Australia?
Maybe not, actually.
I mean, he knows enough about to bring up American politics.
That too.
In a fucking argument. Like...
He knows enough to bring up American politics and how women are viewed in America, but I guess not enough to know about how black people are viewed in America.
About the comment chain that I had on the fucking video, where it's just bringing that up, like about the Republican Party. Like I fucking know that. Dude doesn't even understand what he's talking about.
So he knows enough about American politics, but I guess not enough to know about black people? Question mark.
Shrug shoulders.
talk about how much he
Like, okay, if it's a mindset that you don't agree with, then fine. That's like the entire debate that happens with people about MLK or Malcolm X is which one was more right or whatever. So if that's not the viewpoint that you subscribe to, then sure, why not? You can mention that, but don't say it's bad for the series that there is a character who thinks this way, because then that reflects very poorly on you and how you view people in the real world. Also, why are you taking a picture of this fucking page? You had scans before, you idiot.
Oh shit, he is. This is distracting. Like, this is just fucking distracting at this point. It's like, dude, you don't do that.
He respects Miles' decision is just incredibly uncomfortable to me on every level. And speaking of Scar, long story short, he's not really treated with much sympathy by the series or the narrative. He's framed very much as a serial killer.
He is!
He is a serial killer.
He's literally trying to kill. He murdered a little girl. He murdered an alchemist that had nothing to do with the war. He is trying to murder a 14-year-old boy simply for being in the military.
He isn't framed as a serial killer.
He's murdered
he is one.
multiple alchemists.
He murders people
for
in
crimes
a
that they may or may not have done. Because
he murders people in a purposely gruesome way. Scar could probably just use a gun, but he decides to melt people's heads.
Oh no, your face explode!
So, sorry, Zell, if the series presents murdering people as a bad thing.
Well, they commit genocide.
But when Ironwood sacrifices people, it's bad. I'm going. Oh my god!
Surprised we don't see an Adidas logo here.
As a monster, as someone who's consumed by his vengeance and his hate. The anime.
He is.
He is.
That thing you just said. It's like exactly what it is. Even you might say. One might argue.
May make special efforts to try and make us sympathize with the Emestrian citizens who force their way into an Ishvalan camp, and to show how horrified the Ishvalans are by Scar killing them in self-defense. I hate doing this, but I'm going to contrast it with the O3 anime.
It's called excessive force, don't you think?
It's called excessive force.
Where those guys were explicitly there to oppress and mistreat the Ishvalans as part of a persistent campaign of abuse from the Emestrian government, and that Scar got to be framed as explicitly heroic for defending his people, even if that did mean he was ignoring his master's advice, because the series had more complexity to its morality than murder is always bad. Like, if that is your belief system, then that's fine. I respect that. But I still feel that equating,
I didn't know Edward Eller was a war criminal.
Oh yeah, I don't think he doesn't understand what he's saying. No, he just blatantly does not understand the words he is saying.
Participants in a genocide who have killed thousands, and someone who is actively just fighting the war criminals who did the genocide, like, they are just not remotely equivalent at all. As noted previously, having Scar kills Winry's parents seems like it was done explicitly to try and make him even less sympathetic than the narrative was already treating him, and done in an effort to seemingly try and invalidate his efforts because, oh, you killed innocent people too, which just completely ignores all of the context surrounding the act itself, and that the act itself just feels very contrived in general.
Again, even if he wasn't dazed, that's still a thing Scar would have done, because that's the thing that Scar was doing. That was his goal.
He was already out there with the mindset of kill all the Emestrians.
If he had woken up and wasn't dazed, he still would have seen two Emestrians and gone, nah, y'all gotta die. He wasn't dazed when he was chasing Ed now. Two children. Well, granted, I guess he probably didn't know I was a child, but still.
Well, I mean, but he specifically. I remember that whole thing. It's like he's like, "Don't kill. You can kill me, but don't kill my brother," and he agrees to that. So he was ready to kill a fucking child.
he was ready to kill a child because he's an alchemist. But when he killed the Rock Bells, he was just confused. That whole situation's contrived. Shut the fuck up.
Legitimately, I don't understand. And this is the thing. It's like, what he's just not bringing it up because he can't. You can't bring it up because that breaks your argument.
Like, why exactly did Ed and Winry learn this information right before they see Scar again? It's just way too convenient and it just feels like it really shows the series'
Before?
bias.
What'd you say,
I'm
Doug?
trying to think. No, because he's saying they learned this right before they meet Scar again.
I don't remember exactly how
recall
they
the
learned it,
event.
so
All I know is that if I recall, Ed was on a trip to Xerxes. That's where they found like a bunch of Ishvalans that were saved by the Rock Bells. I'm trying to remember what happened after that because I could have sworn a few more events happened. Not to mention, he intentionally was trying to lure out Scar
that too.
at that time. So yeah, probably was luring out Scar just to get revenge for the Rock Bells, or at least ask him about the Rock Bells. Not to mention also his Shengi's history.
When Winry's grief over her parents being seemingly accidentally killed by Scar as more important than Scar's grief over his family, his people, and his nation being destroyed in an active genocide. On both the neoliberal and the Ishval front, we also have Ed basically equating
Wait, what?
Ishvalan's apparent
Neoliberal.
Neoliberal.
Said the word again.
Did he try to say Ishval? But I heard Ifval.
On both the neoliberal and the Ishval front, we also have
Yeah, it does sound kind of weird. Fucking who knows?
Ed basically equating Ishvalan's apparently damaging his countryside town during the war, even though I don't recall that ever being brought up at any point before his confrontation
Okay,
with
this
Miles.
is where he gets his misinformation wrong right there, because that was the cover-up he used for why he has automail arm.
Yeah, fuck you, Zell.
And then rattling off a line about how we should all just be judged for who we are, not by race or gender or anything. Which sounds nice until you keep in mind that people saying that also are basically saying, let's just ignore historic and systemic abuse that's been going on for generations that creates massive amounts of income inequality, trauma, and general suffering.
So what pisses me off about this argument in both in Zell's case and in the real world is that people want to have it both ways. They want to have us that everybody is equal, but you also have to acknowledge everybody's race all the time. So and people can never just choose one or just decide to blend the both of them. So it's bad that Ed. So Zell, in this scenario, you're saying it's bad that Ed wants to view Ishvalans as equals, because that has to be the standpoint you're taking right now, because you're saying that it would be better
to judge a person by their actions, not by their character.
Because Zell's arguing that Ed should be acknowledging the history and all that, but you can't do that and also say we should disregard that and view them as equals. So is the standpoint that you're taking, Zell, that Ed should not be viewing the Ishvalans as equals? Because giving the most benefit of the doubt, I'd say that's probably not what you're thinking. That's what you're saying.
I'm curious if he wants to judge does he judge a person by the color of their skin or the content of their character?
It has to be by the color of their skin, because he's condemning Ed for viewing someone as equal, for wanting to view someone as equals despite skin color. So whenever Zell introduces himself to a black person, he goes, "By the way, really sorry about all that stuff." Which if someone ever came up to me and said that, I would kill them in Minecraft as a joke. For legal reasons, I can't say that I actually do it.
I mean, nobody's watching this video.
Ed isn't wise for saying let's just ignore any and all historical context and be friends. Whew, okay, that was some heavy stuff, so let's wrap this up with something a little less heavy and a little less serious. Namely, the themes of the series and how it ended.
Themes!
Broadly speaking, the
2
series
minutes
themes
in 2
are
minutes.
God
friendship
damn it.
just in a more advanced and articulated form. Let other people in to support you. You don't need powers to protect yourself or others because you can rely on other people in your community for support, and not to put yourself above other people even if you have some advantages, say for example alchemy, because that doesn't make you better than others. You're still ultimately just a person. These themes are fine. I don't have any real issue with them. Again, I don't think they're particularly as complicated or as nuanced as I think a lot of fans frame them as, but they're not problematic or anything. They just are. I do, however, find the explanation of, I don't need alchemy to be a little weird, given everything was won primarily through alchemy at the end of the day, including getting Alphonse's body back, and also the fact that at the end of the series, which is hilarious given how much he hates Hohenheim for having done the same thing, and he then goes off to study alchemy and regain his powers, which just ends up
Wait,
feeling rather...
pause. Chastise Hohenheim for leaving them as kids. It's just researching right now, and as far as we know, Winry ain't pregnant with kids.
I mean, they have kids.
Oh no, but that's at the end. But he's in the picture with them.
Oh, wait, is him going to study alchemy after the picture?
He's going to study alchemy before that picture.
Okay, never mind then.
This is technically like before they, I guess, got married, or where the whole I'll give you all of my life. No wait, maybe 75, all that kind of junk, which was very cute.
rather incongruous is my general point. And that, as they say, is that. I'll be linking a lot of the resources I used in the summary section and leaving it here. I hope this proved enjoyable and engaging. Sorry it was so long. If you would like to...
You could have fooled me.
You use resources? I wish you'd mentioned any of them.
Yeah,
Wish you'd
explain
explain
resources
at all.
John's video is a resource.
Help support these episodes and get early access to scripts, videos, stories, and art, please hit up my Patreon. If you would like to commission 3D art, please swing by my coffee and we can chat. For now, though, that's all. Thanks for stopping by.
Cool.
So,
check the description. Check it.
Wait a minute.
There's no fucking resource.
Wait a minute.
A lot of what you just said.
Where's the resources?
Where are the fucking resources?
Because you had one job.
For a second, I thought I was about to say, okay, if he actually used resources, maybe he had some sources.
Or is he trying to say the summary of the video? Then I didn't see any resources. Did you?
No.
The last 30 seconds.
There were no resources listed anywhere.
Great.
So that video was terrible.
Yes. Any other thoughts on it? Just it.
-10.
-8 for
-10.
for a video about
-9.
how it's not perfect and that's okay. He weirdly talks about very specific things about Fullmetal and Brotherhood. Like he only really talked about like 30% of the series, and also didn't really mention how it's okay at the end, which I think is a stupid standpoint to take anyway. But it's weird that it would be in your title and you didn't say it at all.
-9. That I would probably say -8, but knowing how this dude has done content, it's like I'm coming into this thinking, okay, it's a longer video. Maybe he's probably going to explain more of it, because like a lot of the times he just doesn't explain.
When he does explain, it gets worse.
Yeah, the fact that it's like when you did explain it, you just blatantly show how you don't understand what you're talking about. Yeah, no, -9.
Yeah,
-10
-9.
because of all the scenes he misconstructed just to view his own point. There's so much disingenuousness within this video. I get the feeling he's just going off of memory, off the dome for this, instead of reviewing the series again.
No, -9. So, yeah, that's that.
So now what? Look at the other videos?
Absolutely not.
I was gonna say check the comments, but there's only one.
Yeah.
I'm just completely. This is. Just pissing off. Like, how do you go that bad at something? Like, how do you not know how to explain it that much?
You get your words so fumbled, you'll pretty much say something super redundant. And it's scripted.
You really said the same thing twice.
Because at first I was like, no, he didn't. He didn't actually say that, right? Oh no, he actually did fucking say that.
Alright, time to end the recording.